Eosinophilic esophagitis, or EoE, is a chronic immune-mediated condition that leads to symptoms of esophageal dysfunction. Its incidence and prevalence are increasing rapidly, and it affects people of all ages. Hear from a young patient's mother about the impact EoE has on quality of life.
Hi, my name is Crystal, and my 12-year-old daughter, Divya, was diagnosed with eosinophilic esophagitis when she was about 20 months old. When she was about 15 months old, she was in daycare, and I received a call that she had been vomiting. And I'd noticed maybe it a couple of times at home before that, but I just kind of thought it was normal infant spit up. But the daycare call it was a little more than that, and it woke my eyes up a little bit. So she just kept on to where the vomiting would basically become projectile. I would be driving along the road, and she's back there in her car seat, and all of a sudden it would just shoot out. So we brought it to the pediatrician's attention. At this time, she was also not gaining weight. She was slipping off the growth chart, and the vomiting was just basically uncontrollable. It caused me and her, a lot of stress. I remember there were days that my husband would come home at the end of the workday, and she and I were both on the floor just in tears because she had vomited all over the floor. I was trying to clean it up. I obviously felt bad for her. She was, 15 to 20 months old at this time. Another thing that was going on was she was having trouble chewing and swallowing food. She would hold her food sometimes in her mouth for 10 to 15 minutes, and she would spit it out somewhere, or it would come up as vomit. And along the same time, we learned that she had some food allergies. Peanut butter was our first clue. We'd actually flown out of state. We're staying in a hotel, and I had the peanut butter, from the continental breakfast, and she dipped her finger in there, stuck it in her mouth, and it's time for her bath later that morning in the hotel, and she had broken out in hives. And I had no clue what it was. It was very scary. But then when we got back home, we told our pediatrician about it. And she realized she was obviously allergic to peanut butter. So there were several things going on: vomiting, not growing, not gaining weight, and then now the food allergies. Well, we did give it some time. She was so young, we were very hesitant to go through a lot of invasive testing. So I think, as far as I remember, the first step was addressing the failure to gain weight and falling off her growth chart. So she started on Pediasure just to try to boost her weight up, but it didn't help at all. Actually, looking back, probably increased the vomiting. So after all of that, we were like, this is not getting better. She sent us to have a GI consult. And so we started with a barium swallow test. And that came back as positive for reflux. So he started her on Pepcid, gave it some more time. Vomiting still didn't resolve. And then he started suspecting eosinophilic esophagitis. So by that time, she was about 20 months old. We realized, hey, we've got to do something about it. It's just gone on for too long. This is not normal. She's not doing well. So we eventually did an endoscopy, and the biopsy showed eosinophilic esophagitis. The hospital that we were using at the time, allergy took over the care of the EoE, and GI was just procedural. They would do the endoscopies. So from about, she was diagnosed around 20 months old to 6 years. 6 years old is important because that was sort of a pivotal time in the change of our plan of care with her. It was just a series of allergy testing, restricting her diet based on foods that obviously caused her, an allergic reaction. and then food elimination of the foods that they suspected were triggering the EoE. So every 3 to 6 months, it was testing for her, and further restricting her diet. And then, after we eliminated a food for a period of time, they would repeat the endoscopy to see how the inflammation either improved or, if it stayed the same. So it was a lot as a family, but as a lot for a toddler and a young kid as well. It created immense stress. Just the day to day, what do I feed this kid? And we were fortunate enough that I was staying home with her through this time. Um, and that privilege is not lost on me. I got to where I had to cook everything from scratch. I knew the inventories of 5 grocery stores in the area. Which one had the gluten-free crackers that she liked, which one had the dairy-free pizza that she would eat. She was looking on rice, grilled chicken, and dry baked potato, and that was essentially it. Wasn't gaining weight. And as she got older, developmentally, it was time to go to her friends' birthday parties or partying at school or whatever. I would have to make her a dairy-free, gluten-free cupcake, explain to the parents there why she couldn't eat the provided food at the party. And she started, feeling different, obviously, but also as she got older each year, the stress on her being fearful of what she could eat grew. So it added a ton of anxiety to a kid who had already gone through a lot with all this testing and hospital visits and everything that she'd already gone through. So that went on for some time, and we became very frustrated, understandably so, because there wasn't an end point. It was like, how are we going to make this work for her life and our life from now on? Because it wasn't manageable, it wasn't sustainable. Our GI doctor, who again was just over the procedure of the endoscopy, we had just a very good rapport with him. He sensed our frustration and recommended that we get a second opinion, try a different hospital to see what was available. So we did go to the GI doctor out of state that he recommended, and they used a different approach, treating it with mometasone. So that allowed her to eat the foods that they suspected triggered her EoE. Obviously, she couldn't eat the foods that she had an allergy to, like fish, peanuts, some tree nuts. So those are still off the table. But taking the mometasone every night just opened the door as far as being able to provide her a somewhat normal diet. So it was life-changing, and that was when she was 6 years old. So it's been 6 years of taking this medication, and it's a very viscous liquid. She takes it. Now she's up to 10 milliliters a night, and it's a syringe. She takes it on her own. She knows not to eat or drink anything for 30 minutes after. She has to brush her teeth a lot after because it can create cavities in her mouth. The only drawback to that, I would say, it is that it's a specialty medication that's not available at CVS, Walgreens, Target Pharmacy, wherever you normally get your medications filled. And it did take some work to find an apothecary that we were able to get that from. At one point, it was shipping from Massachusetts to New Jersey, and then we'd have to go to New Jersey to the post office box and pick it up. That became not an option. So then we had to work to find another apothecary, and thankfully that children's hospital found us one within 20 minutes of our home. But it is still travel, once a month to go get the medication, but it's worth it because it's life-changing. So she started that when she was 6, and about 6 months, if I remember correctly, after taking the medication, they did do an endoscopy. It showed healed inflammation. I don't remember the biopsy results exactly, but her esophagus looked like a healthy esophagus. So not only was it treating the disease, but it was making our life just much more manageable. She is actually due for another endoscopy. We had a checkup with her GI doctor, I think about 3 or 4 months ago. It's been 5 or 6 years since she's had an endoscopy, and she's due for another. But she just has such anxiety about it. And I don't know if she's an anxious kid at baseline or if all that she went through at such a young age played a part in it. But we've had to reschedule it twice already because she's terrified. And so I contacted her GI doctor actually yesterday to see, is it necessary? It's creating a huge amount of anxiety for her. And she said, hey, if it's creating that much worry in her, let's hold off for now until maybe she's in a better state of mind. As far as giving advice to other parents, I would probably be twofold. This was 12 years ago when we were initially going through all of this, and it was a newly recognized disorder, and there was no information, no support out there. And I think between then and now, the awareness has grown, and I think there are support groups either through your hospital or probably online. I would seek as much support from other parents as you could, people who have been there, because it's hard. This was all happening at a pivotal part in our family's life. She was, 2 to 6 when we were going through the trenches. After 6, I feel like we kind of are coasting. But my other 2 sons were born during that time. As a mother, I was juggling, a kid who had a chronic disease, plus the workload and the stress of 2 newborns and toddlers and all that goes with it. It was hard juggling all of this. And I look back and I'm like, how did you do it? But we don't realize how strong we are sometimes when we're going through something until we look back on it. And the second main piece is just try to develop a rapport with your physician, whether it be your primary care physician, your GI doctor, your allergist, whoever you kind of feel that connection with, and maybe kind of looking out for you. Because if it wasn't for our initial GI doctor, I don't know where we'd be. I don't even want to think about it, because who knew that seeking a different hospital out of state would be such a turning point for us? We had no idea. We just didn't have the knowledge. So I will forever be grateful for him and our GI doctor currently for empathizing with Debbie and realizing, hey, she does have a lot of anxiety. Let's hold off on further invasive testing if we don't have to do it. So if you can find a physician that you're comfortable with and you have a good relationship, that also makes a huge difference.
Watch the EoE Phone a Friend series to learn more about EoE, including its pathophysiology, diagnosis, and treatment and management options.